yourself as you enter the room and keep the discussion going. This is great to have you all active and sharing your experience, or also you being new to tools like Spark and some of our mobile apps. But I do want to first welcome you to Adobe's Professional Development Live Session Series. Today we are joined by Ben Forda, who's Senior Director of Education Initiatives at Adobe here. And Ben has one of, I think, the coolest jobs in the company, where he spends a lot of time with teachers like yourself in the classroom, bouncing all over the world and listening to your feedback to build what is one of the most interesting products right now, which is Adobe Spark. Some of you may have seen the evolution from Adobe Voice and Adobe Slate. We've now got that on one platform that Ben will talk about, which is Adobe Spark. I do want to go over some housekeeping rules before we get started here, which is you'll see we have the chat and discussion pod. Love to keep that going. Keep connecting, keep sharing where you're from, what you teach, and where you teach. Also, we have a questions pod where throughout the presentation, please jot down your ideas, your feedback, your comment. I will be monitoring that chat pod, and at the end we can do a Q&A, or Ben, as you wish, we can pause and take questions as we go live in the presentation. I want to welcome you all again to Adobe Professional Development Live Session Series, and I'm glad you could join us today. I'm Remy Mansfield. I'm an Education Programs Manager here at Adobe, and just really excited to have you join us today for a great session with Ben Forda. Ben, I'll hand over the screen to you, and you can do a screen share.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Remy. Thank you all for showing up. I've been watching the chats as you introduce yourself, and we'll customize the session as we go along to make sure it's useful as possible. The one gotcha with the system we're using for me sharing is that I actually won't see the chat pod, and I won't see your questions while I'm sharing my screen. So I generally do like questions anytime. So Remy, if you see a question that you think is particularly relevant, if you wouldn't mind just interject and tell me, because I won't see it. But I think I'm actually going to keep the slide portion and demo portion shorter and give more time for questions and answers at the end. We can just play it by ear. So good to have you here. Again, Remy, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, I do have a fun job. I'm an educator myself, although I don't spend that much time in the classroom anymore. But my first paid job many eons ago was as a teacher, and I still teach as I can. Most of my teaching nowadays is done by writing, and I write books that are used in colleges throughout the country, worldwide actually. So I do virtually get into classrooms that way. But what I do for Adobe is as Remy said, it's a fun job. I get to spend a lot of time with educators and passionate educators like yourself, as well as with administrators and education policymakers, as well as students in the classrooms, with a kind of a dual purpose. I get to talk about Adobe products, and right now emphasizing Spark. But I also get to spend a lot of time with teachers and educators trying to understand what it is they're trying to do, what problems they're solving, what the technology holes are, where they're getting stuck, what tools they need, and to try to figure out what we as Adobe can do to make their life easier as well. So I end up being a conduit of feedback from educators like yourself back into Adobe as well. To kick things off, I want to show you a couple of examples of content, and then we'll talk about how that content was made. And there's been a lot of discussion around Spark in the chat pod. Everything I'm going to show you was created with Spark. And then I want to talk a little bit about the role of creativity in the classroom, and why we created Spark and why we think it's so important. So I'm going to show you that first. Oh, and the one thing I should say up front, because this is really important for educators, all the software I'm going to show you today is free, totally free, as in download it, create an account, use it, no cost whatsoever. Educators love that price point, and so just wanted to make sure we're very clear about that up front, not trying to sell you anything at all. This is free software and we want you to use that. Okay, that being said, let me share my screen, and Remy, I'll rely on you to tell me that things are working properly when I share. Oh, hang on, it looks like we might have a slight technical issue here. Give me 1 second, we're going to redo this. I hate when that happens. Okay, let's try it again. All right, with any luck, you're seeing my screen.
Looks great, Ben.
Perfect. All right, so let me show you a piece of content. This is content that was created by a sixth grader. And it's a school report. It's a school report. The kids were each given could pick a region or a geographical location in the US, and they had to create a report. And they picked a variety of topics. This young man picked the Colorado River, and the report he first wrote was done in Google Docs. So it was, as many classrooms would do, Google Classroom, lots of text, found some images online. And we gave him this tool to reuse his report, and he kind of moved it over there. And this is how he turned it in as this link. So here is the report, and some of the transitions and effects might not come clearly over the webinar, but hopefully you get the idea. So it's, has beautiful imagery. And as I scroll up, it gradually fades out, text comes in. There's some more text, some more details over there. Some more pictures. There's a nice windowing effect as the picture scrolls in. And then he's got a list of which states the Colorado River runs through. Apparently it runs through 5 states. I did not know that until I read this report. And then lots more. The source of the river with more imagery. And then a bulleted list of how the water is sourced. And I'm moving through it slowly, hoping that the Connect session is keeping up with me. But it's actually a long report. It's pages and pages long with lots more detail. And he enjoyed this process so much that he actually then added more content to his report because he liked the output. It wasn't boring text anymore. It was something exciting and something he'd be very proud of. This is a story, content that was created using Spark. And the end result is a web page. What he actually turns in is a page that would look good on any web browser. It would look on big screens, on small screens, on iPads and various things, any browser at all. So that's one example of content I want to show you, web content. I want to show you another example. This next one is a video, and video over Connect sometimes gets iffy. But if it doesn't work, I'll just paste the link later on and you can see it for yourself. But this is actually a video on a school trip that was created by a preschooler, also using Spark. So let me turn the volume up here. I hope you hear it and see the transitions.
I went on a field trip to a farm. We took a bus and I sat with my friends. The pigs are drinking milk from their mommy. This is a baby cow. It's called a calf. We're going to pet the goat. The goat ate Joseph's name tag. The sheep says bah. The sheep give us milk and wool. The cow is really big. It lives in a barn. We learned the cows give us milk and yogurt. The farmer used the tractor to plow the field on the farm. This is my class. We are listening to farmers. They tell us about the oxen. The oxen are strong workers on the farm. We got to hold the baby chicks. One pooped on my pants. I thought it was a cute chick. I had a great time on the farm. The farm is really great.
Okay, that's an awesome video. I make you smile every time I see that. So that was created by preschoolers in the Midwest. The teacher obviously took all the pictures and helped them with the script. But the students, the child here in question, multiple kids in the class created stories. But this child did it himself. He recorded the voices and picked the color backgrounds and picked the music he wanted in the background. And the end result ended up with a video, a movie that can be shared by parents, and it can be posted on YouTube, and it can be shared as needed. So that's the second kind of content. I want to show you a third kind of content, and this is a particularly interesting one. So these are little images, they're posters. This is actually created by students in a school in the UK. A few months ago, there's a British astronaut who became a bit of a hometown hero in that he's going to spend time representing Europe on the International Space Station. And a lot of schools in the UK are using that opportunity to talk about space and talk about science. And the fact that it was in the news makes it a current event that then lends itself to great classroom discussions around science in general. And so what this teacher did is he had the students ask questions, things they would like to know about space, and tweet them to the International Space Station. Now, if you tweet plain text, well, that's not going to get the kids engaged. So he had the kids create these little posters, and each question, here I got 4 on the screen there, but each one is an image. It's kind of a poster, and it's got a background supporting image that the kids themselves picked, text that they enter, and he collected all these images and tweeted them up to the space station to responses. I don't think he's gotten a response from the space station yet, but more importantly, this engaged the kids. It was exciting. It's far more interesting way to have a discussion around and to initiate discussion, classroom interaction using fun graphics and images and something like this, as opposed to just plain text. So 3 very different kinds of examples. I'll show you an example of content that was shared as a text-based story, so it's very suited for long-form text, and then I'll show you a second one that was video, and the third which were images. All of these 3 types of formats are ways to share ideas and ways to share stories, way to express creativity, and they're all using Adobe Spark that I already mentioned was free. So let me jump to a couple of slides, and I'm not going to spend too long on the slides because I'd rather go back to the demo itself, but I do want to give you explain a little bit of the problem that we're trying to solve as we think about tools like Adobe Spark, and more specifically around the role of creativity in the classroom. So, we spend a lot of time thinking about creativity, as you would expect. We are Adobe, and we've built a company on tools for creators and creative professionals, and indeed, students use those tools as well. Tools like Photoshop and Illustrator, Premiere, InDesign, they are used by students, and that's wonderful. We love when they do. But we also recognize that for some students, those tools are more complicated, but more importantly, for some instances, that's too much. If you are writing a school project and you've got to write up a paper, and doing that in InDesign, that might be overkill. If you want to create a short video for a science, I was at one school where for the science fair, they had all the boards set up and a little QR code next to every science fair, and the parents and visitors could scan the QR code or watch a short 2-minute video of the student explaining his project. You can do that in Premiere, but that seems like a lot of work and overkill. And so what would creativity look like if we took everything we knew about how to make very expressive, very creative content and make that available so that technology is not a barrier, not for students or for teachers, and really encourage that level of creativity? This is what we stress about. Our students have access to unbelievable technology. The majority this weekend are walking around chasing Pokemon, trying to find them in augmented reality. And that's great. Actually, I love the fact that that app is now getting them to go outside and stretch their legs. But I'd be more excited if they were building those apps. The amount of power, processing power, and access to technology they have. And for the most part, our kids are consumers of technology, not creators. They consume content, creative content that others have created, and they're not doing enough creation itself. And that's really important. And if we're going to talk about creativity, we've got to start with Sir Ken, who defines creativity as the process of developing ideas that are original and or value. And he also points out that creativity is not just around art, right? So it's not just special people who are creative. Creativity is not just about the arts, and it's also not just around self-expression, but it can be applied to a lot of disciplines. There was a really interesting study I read from Education Scotland about 2 years ago, that did some pretty extensive research into when creativity is injected into the classroom, and so and students and teachers are given the chance to do things differently, ways that they feel can relate to them, or ways to express themselves that isn't just follow along. Several things happened. One, students become far more interested in discovering things for themselves, and that's what the educator in the UK with that example to the space station discovered. They're far more open to new ideas and challenges. They're far more able to solve problems, and that actually is the entire purpose for injecting creativity this way. Is it's less follow instructions and more learn problem solving for yourself, work well with others, become far more effective learners, and also take greater ownership for their learning. Those are all really good things. Here's where things get a little scary. Howard Gardner says that by age 7, children have developed a capital of creativity, which they draw upon, and it's much harder to change that later on. And so, and this thinking is really what's driving these tools, with a recognition that we need tools, creative tools, that let younger users generate content that is as professional looking and as compelling looking as what their pro peers are using, but without the level of complexity. By age 8 or 10, if children are not given that option, then their fear of being creative is inhibited. Fear of failure, more focus on the right answer. This guy has the best job in the world, president of Lego Education. I know, Remy, you said I have a good job, but honestly, president of Lego Education sounds like an awesome job to me. But they've been focusing on creativity and summarize it as the skill, the will, and the thrill, and that if kids are not pushed up to necessarily have the right answer or present content in one specific way, but there's a variety of ways to be creative about it, their ability to learn as individuals improves, they're more motivated, and there's a greater thrill in learning. I visited one school a few months ago that was fascinating. This is a school, there were 4th and 5th graders who were doing projects on native people in the country they were in, and they had to turn in a paper, they had to turn in assignments. But they had a right way to do it. If they wanted to write a paper, they could. If they wanted to create a slide deck, they could. If they wanted to shoot video against a green screen and tell a story, they could. If they wanted to make posters, they could. The key is they had to explain how the native people rights were being infringed upon and what we should do for them, and make a case. And they can be as creative as they want in making that case. That kind of thinking is interesting, and it creates very engaged students. And those are the kind of tools we want to provide tools to make that possible. Educators agree. Yep.
Yeah, we've got one question from my butt in here. A couple of educators have asked about, does Spark work with Google Apps for Education logins, and is it covered for kids under age 13? How do you deal with that?
Sure. So I was going to get to that, but we can talk about it now. So absolutely. Okay. So Spark runs both. Spark is delivered in 2 ways. It runs in the browser on major platforms, including on Chromebooks, and yes, it can use Google login, so it does integrate with Google Apps for Education. It also runs on iOS devices, and it uses all the logins there as well. So yes, definitely on the Google Apps for Education side of things. For under 13 users, there are some pretty strict rules about how you use it, and so there's an education guide that will give you a link to the end that explains how it's to set up, and generally it involves setting up a classroom account that is shared among the students. So yes, it is usable under age 13 as long as they follow those guidelines, and we will give you the education guide so you have all the details on how to use it.
Great. Thanks.
Cool. All right, I'm going to run through these last couple of slides really quickly and then jump over to the demo. What's clear is that educators and parents all believe that this level of creativity is important. What's also very clear is that most parents and educators feel like there isn't enough of it happening. And I'm going to jump through the next few slides because this is I don't want to spend too much time here, but this is, as educators, we don't want marketable skills to be the #1 driving force of what it is that we do to encourage students. We don't want them to be worrying in 3rd and 4th grade about their jobs and whether they have the right skills for that. That being said, as educators, it is our job to ensure that they are adequately prepared for the real world. And in all surveys, hiring managers are consistently saying that students are lacking the skills they need. So the skills they want tech savvy. I don't worry about this. Kids nowadays are tech savvy. I have kids. I have a grandson. He's 3 years old, and he is far more tech savvy than I was far older than that. So I don't worry about kids feeling comfortable around technology. They need to communicate digitally and visual media, and here, this is really important. This becomes more of an issue because that involves not just sending a Snapchat and not just sending messages that fit into a text message in text lingo, but actually know how to share ideas and share effectively, and not just necessarily in the written word, but also using digital visual media. That's really important. And finally, express creativity. So there again, this is what hiring managers are actually looking for. I'm going to skip through the next few slides because they end up saying the same thing over and over again. And I do want to jump to just a couple of last things over here. So if you guys aren't on Education Exchange, you need to be. I'll let Remy talk more about Education Exchange when we're done. But I'm assuming you all are edX users already, but if not, you should be. It's an invaluable community of hundreds of thousands of like-minded educators sharing very compelling ideas, and Remy can tell you more about it when we're done. And then I want to jump out of here now and show you some tooling. So this over here is Spark, and this is the web version of Spark. Now, as I said, it runs in web browsers, so it will run on Windows and Mac. It is designed specifically to run on Chromebooks as well. So we designed it with Chromebooks in mind, and it works with Chromebooks with or without touch, and with pretty much any level of Chromebook out there. It does require a login, as we mentioned before. The logins that it requires it can be an Adobe ID, it can be a Google App for Education ID, or Google login in general. It can also be other social logins, and it's used. Spark is already being used from preschools all the way to higher ed and more. As noted previously, for under 13-year-olds, we can't allow them creating their own accounts. And so there should be a classroom account that is set up and shared that way instead. Now, when the iOS versions look the same, they run on iPad and iPhone, and the beauty is that they sync automatically. So if students are using an iPad in class and they want to continue working at home with a web version, it'll just work, it'll just sync, right? As long as it's the same login, all the hosting and all the sharing of content and all the synchronization of content is all included for the same charge of free. When you log in, you see all the content you've created, and you'll see that got posts and pages and so on, and there's inspiration there as well. You can go to various categories, but if I hit plus and go to create a, let's create a post first of all, it'll ask me, so what do you want to say? What do you want to talk about today? All right, so we got pick a graphic size, and maybe we're going to post this one on Twitter. Hit continue, and it gives me a simple editor, and it's already got content that they're looking for me now. Now, the first thing we can do is pick a background image to make this work. So I want an image, and I can replace that. We'll pick images out of your Lightroom, out of a shared classroom Dropbox, or if they're Google Apps for education users and they have their photos in their drive, they'll work there as well. You can upload a picture, or you can find photos. And if you're finding photos, these are photos that are publicly available online, and only images that are tagged publicly as Creative Commons, which is a really useful teachable moment. And so this is sourcing images from Flickr and Pixabay and others. And if you're creating video or text or long form content and use these images, we automatically embed the appropriate credits and attribution at the bottom, which is really important in the classroom. So let's do a search for a public image over here. And let's find one that helps over here. Oh, that's nice and old school. I like that. Cool. All right. So now we got that over there. So the next thing we want is a theme. And themes are just general ideas to help you get started. And as you pick on a theme, it gets applied. And these are already, oh, that's nice. These are already looking like, I like that one a lot. Okay, the next thing we can do is pick a palette. And the palettes over here, this is interesting. What Spark does is it looks at the image, and it makes the initial color it uses is actually based on the underlying images. And I can cycle through with minimal work all the images in that palette, or it makes recommendations of other palettes, and I can pick different colors I want as well. And then I could apply photo filters as well if I want. And if I want more control over the text, I can go in and play with colors and fonts, or I can use this style suggestion wheel, which each time you press it, or turn it, gives you another random design as inspiration that you could use as a starting point. Oh, that's cool. I like that one. All right. And then when you're done, you've got an image. You hit share, and you can download a JPEG, or you can post it to social media, or whatever you need. And if you are going to post to social media, we have schools that use this, that post announcements of things, and then you can resize and say, okay, great, now I need one that's optimized for Facebook, for Twitter, for Pinterest, and so on, and pick the format that does it all for you automatically. Right? Now, if you're using the iPad version of this, it actually has introduced animation features that aren't yet available in the web version. Those will be coming shortly. So that's how you create an image. Now, if I go back to my projects, there's my new image already there. I can duplicate it, I can delete, download, share, and so on, post it, share it with others as well. And if I open this on my iPad, it's already there, already synchronized. All right, let's create another type of content. This time it's a page. All right, so pages, the example of the Colorado River I showed you before, is kind of the long form content. And let's create a story over here. All right, now I need a good background image for this one. Let's do a search again. And, oh, that's nice and dramatic. Look at that one. Okay, so that's already looking pretty good at the beginning of a story. And as I scroll down, let's put a little bit more content, and I'll show you how theming and styles work. So we're going to write here, add some text. Chapter 1, my trip. And I'm not going to make you wait while I type a whole bunch of text. You get the idea. And this over here we're going to say is a header, and that's in text. And now we need some more images in here, so let's put a little photo grid in there with some more pictures of space. Here and here and here, and you get the idea. Cool. All right, save. And you can do a lot more. You can also then, it's going to take a second while it downloads those images. These are all Creative Commons imagery. I can add a caption. I can also embed video if I need, links and more text and so on. Let's add a bit more text over here. And this will be chapter 2 and some more text. Now, we actually already have a working story here. If I previewed it now, up comes the story. And it's looking nice already. And I could scroll. And as I scroll, I get the nice transition effects. And there's my text. And these images are in a grid. And if I tap on one, automatically I get the zoom effect where I can scroll back and forth between them. But it's not quite the look I want yet. Let's quit out of preview. And what I want to do now is go to themes. And themes are what let me put styling. And I'll talk about this in a moment because it's really important. But I can pick a theme that then applies fonts and colors, and it formats headers different ways. Well, this one actually kind of matches nicely. Look at that. And there are lots of others. I find when I'm talking to younger kids, they almost always pick this one. They like the font over there. That's a pretty good one too. Let's just pick one a little bit more dramatic. How about this one here?
And Ben, while you're going through themes, there was a question about can you remove the watermark on desktop version of Adobe Spark Post?
Yep. Sure. So the watermark on Post is only there until you remove it, and the way you remove it, you know what, I'll go back in a second to show you. So let me finish this at page 1, then I'll go back to Post and I'll show you how you remove it. But yes, your answer is you can, but because it's free, you got to kind of be nice to us one time, then we're nice to you and take it away, and I'll show you that in a second. So here's the preview of this version now. This one looks a lot better over here, and you can see it's got, it's formatted the headers for me, and it's got the images and so on. Now, the important thing here. Educators love this as a way to turn in papers, and here's why. Students have this horrible habit, and actually, for that matter, most adults I know have this horrible habit, of spending more time worrying about the colors of the fonts and the spacing and the borders and the color of the bullets than they do on the content itself. And we want to make sure the kids spend more time on the presentation, on the content, not on the presentation. The problem is they want it to look good. And so the theme model in here in Spark is designed to give you some control, but limited control. So you don't have control over specific fonts. You don't have control over the exact colors of text. You don't have controls over sizes of text. You can tell us this is a header or not. You can say it's whether it's a bulleted list, and so you define it what the output is, what you're trying to do, and the theme applies all that for you. And this way, students get content that looks very, very professional and happy with the result, but they don't end up falling into the abyss of forever formatting colors and never actually working on the content. And this is really, really important to educators. So this looks really good. This is now a good story over here. And if I was to publish this and open it on different devices, this grid, for example, of images would start resize and remap properly and would still fit. So that's an example of creating a page. And there too, so as I said, when you click on text, you'll see the various formatting options for alignment and things. You can embed links and text and photos and video, and then you use the theming. And the one last thing I want to show you is that when I go to the bottom of the content over there, notice at the bottom I put all the credited over here. This is all the attributes for the Creative Commons imagery, which is really important. All right, so then now we've done that, let's go back. Someone asked a question about removing the post over here. Here's what you do. And actually what's the same on iPad. All you do is you go in the editor and you click on it. And if you click on it, it says, hello, help spread the word. Just share now, tell us one time on Facebook or Twitter or email or something that you use it to help get more people to use it, and we'll take it away. That's all you got to do. Do that once, and the watermark will be gone. Does that answer the question? I can't see the chat log, Remy, so I'm assuming if it didn't answer your question.
Yeah, it looks great. Yep, it looks great.
Great. All right, good. So let me show you the last one. That's video. And also, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of inspiration built in here, a lot of examples. Video is the same idea. So here, again, we'll do my trip to outer space. Next. Now, here, you can just start from scratch, or we don't want to be overly prescriptive because you want students and kids to share their idea, but it's also important to give them a little bit of structure sometimes. If you're telling what happened and you just start with who I am, when, where, and so on. And so if you're telling a show and tell, what is it, why is it important to you? So they can pick one of these categories over here, and if they do, we don't write the story for them, but we create a few placeholder pages with little prompts to remind them what they need to do. And so some teachers love using those, others want them to start from scratch. And you can just start from scratch. So up comes the video editor. I'll tell you, there's one preschool I've been working with where they don't use, they have the students do their own imagery. And so the kids first of all get out the crayons and paper and draw the pictures and use their iPad to take a picture of each, a photo of each picture, and then they string them together in the movie and tell the story that way. All right, so let's start over here. This is going to be, we need a photo for this one. And again, we're going to use space. We'll use the same one again there. All right, that's good. And actually, let's change the layout on this one and give it some text as well. All right, and now I can keep adding slides. So let's add another one. Here's a second slide. And this time, maybe I want an icon of a rocket. Now, the icons are a collaboration with us with a noun project. There are hundreds of thousands, 500,000 different icons in there that are all very clean and stylized this way, so that when you put them in, they actually look really good and they're themed very well. This one will change the layout. It only needs one thing, and you get the idea. We'll add one more page over here, and this time we'll put a picture of. Let's do Mars. That does not look like Mars to me. Oh, I guess it kind of does. All right, cool. All right, so now the next thing we need to do is make it look the way we want. And once again, we use themes. So like in the page, you aren't going to control specific colors or fonts. Instead, you're going to pick a theme. A theme gets applied, and they do really nice things. Like this theme gives it a really nice stylized effect. It impacts the color. Notice how it changes the icons for you, and even the fonts as well. And you can pick any theme you want. There are lots of them over here. There's younger students always pick this one. And again, it has its own style again. Notice how it also matches all the colors. This one's also a fun one for projects like this. And so everything from the color to the font to the background to when you play the movie, how it transitions back and forth, all of that is going to be impacted by the theme. And we want to encourage them to not spend forever drilling down into specific colors and fonts and instead focus on their content and tell their story. This one actually works pretty well. All right, cool. So when I'm done, all I have to do is hit the record button to allow that. I went on a trip to outer space. I went on a trip to outer space. We took a rocket. It was a long, long journey. We hoped to make it all the way to Mars. And now I can play the entire movie. I went on a trip to outer space. We took a rocket. It was a long, long journey. We hoped to make it all the way to Mars. All right, the last thing we need to do is pick music, and we give you a lot of music yourself that the kids can play with, and they can adjust the volume level, or they can add their own music, and then as teachers, it's your job to make sure the kids know that there are licensing issues. They can't use their favorite Taylor Swift song, and it's all happening. But so we generally encourage them to use the music included in here. But when you're done, you hit share and you publish it. And what we've created now in a matter of seconds is an actual video. It's an MP4 that can be shared, distributed any which way. Now, the really cool thing about this is that the tools can be used together. So you can create a video here, and the images in it could be images created as a post. You could create a page, and the page includes a video, right? So if we went back to our previous example, back to my projects, and I go to this project over here, I could then add a video, and that video could be the video I just created as a video embedded here as well. And I saw one school recently that did for Martin Luther King Day, they did every student created their own video, and they had one large page that talked about the class project in general, and then every student's video was embedded in the page, and that got shared out to everybody as well. So lots of really, really fun use cases. That's what Adobe Spark is in general. We think it's a tool that truly solves the creativity problem I mentioned before, in that it is very accessible. We give this to students, and they have no problem figuring it out. They barely ask for help. It's also not intimidating to teachers, not that all teachers are, but some teachers are worried about bringing a tool that's very complicated. That's a big effort for them to learn and will be a challenge in the classroom to teach as well. This tool is designed to be fun and engaging and really not need a whole lot of learning. But the results are very compelling, very professional, and so we have students up and down the academic chain using them. The video format, we've seen students as young as preschool. The page format, because it does involve the written word, starts usually at 4th, 5th grade, but all the way into college, higher education. And the post format, because it is a little more social oriented, is automatically geared at slightly older students, but also used extensively here as well. With that, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so that I can see the screen and see if there are any questions. Then if there are more demos you want to see, we can do that as well. And for some reason, it's not letting me do that. Okay, good. All right, cool.
Yeah, Ben, Susanna had a good question looking at some of the social features or potential future social features. But she asked, is there a way to follow users? And commented that it would be nice to follow students so that as they create and publish, the teacher is notified.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And so we've talked about, right now, there is an effective landing page, which is when you log in, you see all the content. What we haven't created yet is a public version of that page, a page where, like a portfolio page where all that content gets put in one place, so that it can be followed and monitored. That is on the something that's on the to-do list. I can't promise when that is coming, but that is absolutely planned. The idea that you can have a public portfolio of your work that then people can track and follow as well. So not there yet, but it's something we is in the works. The other thing I should mention is in the works is that when I created that video before, you saw that in the video I can embed text and images, but one odd thing is you can't yet embed video in video, but that is coming. That'll be there very shortly.
Great. And Ben, this is just sort of a general question for the audience here, but when you open up Spark, you've got 3 apps that you can work with. Do you recommend starting with one or the other? Does one sort of naturally build skills in another one, or do they all sort of feed together? Is there a pathway?
Yeah, honestly, they feed together. The difference is the format, the output. I usually like to ask students, what are you trying to create? If you want to share this idea or tell your story, what do you think is the most effective format? Are you going to write something? Does it need to be a video? And I kind of let the desired outcome drive the format as opposed to starting with any particular one of them. And more, they look the same. The UI is the same. If you learn one, you learn the others, and that integration is going to continue.
So I've just, for everyone to orient themselves, I just switched back to the original screen just while we take a pause in sharing, just to spread it out a little bit. We can see some of the questions. Again, if you do have questions or you had questions you put in the discussion in chat pod, please paste them in the questions pod and we can pull them from there. Any plans for, Ben, to you, any plans for adding collaborative features, sort of multiple users working on a page together?
Yes, that's a good question. So that's something we are experimenting with, and it's early days still. At some point, there will be a higher end version. So let me take a step back. Spark, as I've already said, there's no cost, and it's going to remain that way. The core features, the ability to create content and edit and create and share, is free and will remain free. And we're committed to that. It's really important. We have hundreds of thousands of students already using this, and that isn't going to change. What is going to change is that we are going to add at some point, a higher end or a paid version of Spark. And exactly what that is, whether it's his own product, whether it ties into your Creative Cloud account, we're still trying to figure that out. But there will at some point be premium offerings that give you extra functionality. And so we're trying to figure out what belongs there and what doesn't. So things like collaboration which involves a lot more infrastructure, more management, and it requires managing accounts and related accounts might become part of that. So short answer is yes, we are looking at it. We're looking at it from a technical perspective as well as from a delivery perspective. But we're taking our time to figure that out, and so it's not going to be in the very short term, but it's something we are working on concurrently while we keep improving the core offering. Nina, that is exactly right. This is an opportunity for us to learn a lot about what the tools are and how they work, what features people want, what students want, what teachers want, and then concurrent with that, figure out what a more complex offering might look like. Karen, I agree. We got asked a lot about analytics, and that too is something that will probably be in the higher-end offering. Roxanne, adjusting animations, the short answer is no. The animations that are in the video are actually created in After Effects. And we have After Effects experts on the team who create those transitions animations and wrap them in something simple that can be used inside of a video. The intent is that we do all the hard work, we make stuff look really, really easy for you. The second that you want to start doing that level of animation yourself and control timings and control transitions and fades and fades out and so on, you're probably going beyond what this tool is supposed to do, and that's really where you start using Premiere and After Effects. And it's not a simple transition, I know that, no pun intended, but that feels like the right objective. Now, that being said, we will gradually add more functionality. We're ready, for example, on Spark Video of allowing you to start tweaking colors and so on a little bit. But you know, I don't want to ever see a timeline, for example, inside Spark, you know, and that's kind of needed to manage timings and transitions. And so if we can add extra functionality, an extra level of customization without making it complex, we'll do that. But we're not ever going to sacrifice the simplicity of the tool together. Karen noted, I made a note of that, and I will let the team know. Gino, will paid version be part of Adobe Creative Cloud? That makes a whole lot of sense. That is something we are still talking about. I don't want to comment on any specifics on what a paid premium offering would be, but the question you're asking is a good one, and that is definitely something that makes sense and we're thinking about. Roxanne, Flash did not go away. Flash kind of morphed into a tool more focused on animation, which is what Flash was primarily being used for, because it wasn't really needed for a lot of the other poses anymore. And if you look at Adobe Animate, that is what the next generation of Flash actually is. I see lots of people typing, so I'll wait. Questionnaires and feedback and comments. Those are not things on the Spark roadmap right now, but I will pass that on. Roxanne, Adobe Animate, yeah, it's an Adobe product. You just go to the Adobe product page and look for it. It's also part of your Creative Cloud subscription. Roxanne, no, Creative Cloud is not free. It's a monthly subscription.
And I might just add that as an educator, there is a reduced price. And as Nina comments, well worth what you pay. You know, Ben, I'm curious, you know, for educators who obviously are going to be using Spark, want to give feedback, want to share the work that they're doing, what's the best venue? I can see edX being a great tool. I also want to hear from you what would be the best way for educators to stay involved.
I mean, honestly, I think edX is probably the best way to do it. You know, there are several threads on there right now about the use of Spark, and if you want to share your ideas, you can that. If you want to contact me directly, I'll put my email in there. You're more than welcome to do so. I love talking to teachers. I love visiting schools. More than happy to talk to anybody and visit anybody anywhere to talk about the tools and how they can be used. And if you are doing interesting things in your classroom, I'd like to know as well. I'd like the chance to visit and see and learn about what we can do to improve the products. So feel free to reach out to me directly. But yeah, if you want to have a broader discussion and just post your work and post students' work or classroom assignments, I think edX is a great place to start. And I'll put my name and email in the chat pod right now.
And then as Ben does that, Nina, I can say EduCause is a conference that Adobe is definitely present at, and yeah, we'll definitely be there. So look forward to seeing you in October.
Kelly's asking, can you print the version of the stories? That's a really good question, Kelly, and it's a big, big challenge. The short answer is if you create a Spark page right now, it doesn't print well. And the reason for that is actually, it's technical but pretty simple. If you go to any sophisticated website, anything from CNN's website to Facebook, and try to print, it does wacky things. And that's because responsive HTML isn't simple linear, it doesn't have fixed width. And as you move it, things wrap. And so there really is no two-dimensional representation, so things don't print well. Because a Spark page, the stories are responsive HTML, and they are designed to render on the fly and look good on all different screen sizes and form factors, there really is nothing there to print. It doesn't translate well to that. And so we do hear, Dustin, I agree with you that in the ideal world we should go paperless. But that being said, I do hear from educators that they need a printed version. I hear it from teachers who would like to redline and mark things. I actually hear it more in higher education, where they want a printed version for a record and files, where because sometimes you need a timestamp, something that doesn't change after assignments are turned in. And so it's something we're looking at. We are experimenting with ways perhaps to turn it into a PDF. That might be something we're doing. Roxanne, exactly. But the problem is even PDF right now doesn't support responsive HTML, so it would need to be a newer version of PDF, which isn't quite there yet. So long answer to a short question. The bottom line is right now there is no good way to print Spark stories, but we hear that request a lot, primarily in education, and so it's something we're looking at. Kelly, that's exactly the point. It's the senior leaders in higher education who want printed out copies that they can keep for transcripts and keep in files and give them to assistants to grade and mark. And it's going to take a while to change, and we get that. And we do need to find a printable option. We just don't have it yet.
Mm-hmm. Actually, Linda had an interesting idea there as well, where she suggested doing screenshots of the document.
Wow. Yeah,
that's a workaround.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It'll work. Yeah. I'm not going to encourage that behavior, but sure, it might be the workaround for now.
Right.
I mean, the truth is, the only way to do it right now would be to dumb down the format. It would be basically to take out all the responsiveness of it. If you go to news sites often and you hit the print button, they generate a simpler version of the page, kind of a dumbed down version of the page, and that's what you print. We would essentially need to do that. We'd need to let you have every page generate a printable version that doesn't look as good, and that really feels to violate the very purpose of Spark Page. Students are creating content, and they're proud of it. It's part of their portfolio and brand. It looks really good, and they have to create a version that looks lousy just to be able to print it. Seems to fly in the face of what we're trying to accomplish. So it's not ideal. That may be the solution, but we are looking into it.
And I noticed I just put in the chat pod here that people are talking about e-portfolios, and that's something that certainly the education team were really focused on, because if you sort of look at our main mission about launching student careers, portfolio development is a part of that career, giving them the right tools to create the content, but then also be able to display that content in professional and useful ways. So I just put a link to actually probably not as new as Spark, but a relatively new product, which is Adobe Portfolio. So people can take a look at that. And Roxanne, you suggest WordPress as well. That's another platform.
So I mentioned a document that explains how to use Spark with under 13s, and I just pasted in the window a link to a FAQ article which has a PDF attached to it, which is our guide to using Spark in the classroom.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Ben. Wow, Karen, that is quite the work process. Instructors who print the student assignments, redline them, and then mail them back to the student. I may have had one of those before. That's pretty good. Yeah, it sounds like, Dustin, you're getting at some of these issues around EEA issues, data, PII, what level of PII. Yeah, certainly Higherend is going through that.
Yeah, Dustin, so the answer to the EEA issue is that right now Spark uses Creative Cloud infrastructure to store content, and so it's going to pretty much be stored North America, but the Creative Cloud team itself is aware of the issue and is looking into it, and when they resolve that issue with Creative Cloud, then Spark will get it as well. So I'm not trying to kick the can down the road on that one, but that's a bigger Adobe discussion that needs to be resolved. And we're waiting for when that plan is rolled out, we'll be able to take advantage of it. Roxanne, so the images, they're Creative Commons, exactly what Linda said, they're Creative Commons imagery, just search in Creative Commons. And the icons are all from the Noun project. Dustin, absolutely. You can export the video, it's an MP4, you can put it on Moodle or anywhere else you want, exactly. Yeah, that's why it's actually so important for Spark to create native formatting. Unlike if you're using Photoshop, you end up with a PSD file, and then when you're done, you save an image. And if you're using InDesign, you have an ID file, an Illustrator, an AI file. What we did deliberately with these tools is there is no intermediate file. What you're working with automatically is the file that can be taken offline and shared and published elsewhere. And so it simplifies that process of putting it into your own systems or your own storage or classroom management systems, LMSs, and so on.
So sorry, Ben, just to recap on Dustin's question, students can just export a video, or it's the fact is that it lives on the Spark platform?
When you publish it, it'll live on the Spark server, and then you can download it. If you want to then take it off the Spark server after you download it, you absolutely can, right? So you could publish, which is the process of generating the movie, and then grab the movie, and then just unpublish it. It's not on our servers anymore, if you wanted to do that, and then you have an MP4 that you can put anywhere.
Yeah, so as you all can see, it's very flexible, very, I think, accommodating to the both creation and publishing and sharing.
Karen, kind of, sort of. The step that actually wraps it up as the final movie, particularly on the web version, is the share publish step. But that's what packages the individual assets. So you kind of need to go through that step to get the final download, but then you can remove it. Especially on the web version. On the iOS version, you can save directly to camera roll. On the web version, you can't. I see lots of people typing.
Yeah, maybe we'll take a breath and see how many more. Just to let everyone know, we have about 4 or 5 more minutes here towards the end of the session. This has been great, and thank you again, Ben, for both the presentation, but taking a lot of time to field these questions. I think there's a ton of excitement around Spark, both K-12 and higher ed, and as Ben suggested, if you are interested in keeping this conversation going that we're having here, best way to do that is through the Education Exchange, through our educator community. And there's lots of good discussions that you can search for actually in our new search feature and contribute to those discussions as well.
And I'll repeat the offer I made beforehand. We're really interested in visiting schools who are either already using Spark or about to deploy it. And so if there's an opportunity to meet teachers, do some in-school PD, even see it in use with students, let us know. We are actively researching for the next set of features to go into Spark. We have a lot of really interesting ideas, both for additional formats beyond the 3 Spark already supports, as well as for additional features. And so the more real-world feedback we get, the better. And so if you are using the tool, and if there's a chance for us to visit you or visit the school or visit teachers or in your area, let us know. We are more than willing to come by.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I think maybe just a follow-up, Ben, from Karen about sort of downloading without publishing. She comments that when I go to share, there is a download right there before I finish sharing.
That's true. you should be able to do that.
Okay.
I'll have to actually check to make sure that I want to verify that workflow is what you want before we do that, but that could work.
Okay, it looks like a lot of responses here of just Wilma, using voice with grade 3, so Spark Video.
Yeah, see,
excited.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
See, Karen, if you do that, if you hit download before you've ever shared, you'll notice there's a scroll bar across the top of the screen and it says preparing your video. During that prepare process, it's uploading it. It kind of has no choice because the web browser doesn't have all the technology to turn those assets into a movie. That's done server side, and so it's still going up and down. So it's not exactly share without ever sending it to the server. I just ran a test net to verify that.
Exciting to hear from Linda here that you'll be using Adobe Spark to train students and teachers in August. That's great, Linda. We are excited to hear from you. So please do share any lessons, materials, educational resources on Education Exchange. We are looking to share as much as we can, be as transparent as a community of practice. So yes, anything that you all are using to teach both students and teachers, please do share. I think we're really excited about this tool, as you can see, and certainly fits a lot of niches within educational contexts. Excellent.
Nina, exactly. The more we see the content being shared, the more we know what features want. And also, it's actually a lot of fun to hear from students. I've been fortunate to sit in on lots of classrooms in lots of countries to see the tools in use, and to first of all just watch what they do, where they get stuck, what features they're looking for, and that helps us fine tune the product. But also what they're asking for. They want additional colors, they want fonts, the bold italics. Some of those changes we made came about directly as a result of students actually asking for that. And so, yeah, we'd love to see the content, and if we can see the workflow, that's even better.
Well, I have to say we're coming to the end of the hour here, so I just want to thank Ben again for your time. Thank you all for joining us today. Before you run off, we'd love to hear from you about your feedback on the session here, and look forward to learning more about how you are using Spark and on Education Exchange, sharing your resources and experiences. I do want to give a quick shout out to a few upcoming professional development